gospel story of Jesus with one purpose in mind: to get us, the readers of the gospel, into the story. He's not writing to entertain us. He's not writing to give us an autobiography of Jesus' life. He is writing to get us into the story. And so where do we fit in this drama being played out in Jesus' last week? Are we with the authorities? Or maybe we are part of the crowds? Or maybe we are disciples. Who are we? Are we like the authorities, satisfied with the status quo? Do we like the world the way it is, that tilts economics in our favor at the expense of the rest of the world? Or do we see ourselves as the hurting crowd, amazed at Jesus, but primarily interested in what he can do for us? Heal us, feed us, save us. And what exactly does salvation look like anyway? Or do we consider ourselves to be disciples? We like Jesus. We understand the message. And we perceive ourselves to be followers of the Christ. But the mirror that is being held up for us today asks the question, are we? Are we following the way? Well, we say we're certainly not like the crowds. They were in it simply for what they could get out of it. They weren't really serious about following the way we are. They just liked the benefits of having God on their side. But we're serious about being on the way. And we certainly don't see ourselves as part of the authorities who want to maintain the way of the world while resisting the way of God. So what does that leave? We must be disciples, right? Perhaps Jesus is holding up a mirror for us to examine ourselves as he critiques the scribes. Jesus says, beware of the scribes who like to walk around in long robes. In contrast, Jesus on the way was bound and led away as captive and stripped of his clothes at the cross. The scribes like to be greeted with respect in the marketplace and have the best seats in the synagogue and places of honor at banquets. Jesus, on the other hand, was mocked, spat upon, and ridiculed, who instead of the best seat in the synagogue and places of honor at banquets, was impaled upon a cross between two revolutionaries. Hardly a seat of choice or of honor. Again, the scribes devour widows' houses. Jesus, instead of devouring widows' houses, poured himself out for the sake of the weak and the poor, emptying himself so that they might have life, rich and full and abundant. True religion cares for the poor, the widow, the orphan, and the outcast. True religion pours itself out for the sake of the hungry. True religion is living out the alternative way of God in the midst of the way of the world. And so the question remains, just where do we place ourselves in this story? Are we like the disciples? Well, maybe. Maybe we truly are like the disciples, attached to Jesus and his message, but becoming ever more fearful of the cost. And somehow unable to shake the fear of the rejection of this world if we truly become what Jesus asks of us. Afraid that if we really commit ourselves to following the way, we may end up like Jesus. Stripped, ridiculed, brought before the authorities, condemned, and killed. Maybe we really are like the disciples, because like them, we often betray and abandon Jesus and flee the way of discipleship. You see, these stories are not really just about Jesus last week. These are eternal stories that ask us to look at ourselves in the mirror and to ask ourselves about the meaning of true discipleship.